I learned how to perceive this rudeness of Chinese people, because foreigners often think Chinese people are very rude. And throughout this interview, I achieved to have more understanding for Chinese people, because it's just a big amount of people. You have to be selfish in order to survive. All these discussions help me to navigate better and understand life better here, because sometimes things can be very frustrating with the spitting or the traffic or whatever. And understanding, going beyond the actual behavior to understand it makes it easier to accept and just say, well, I'm also weird. We Germans are weird. You're weird. Chinese are weird. We are all weird people with weird behaviors, and that's okay.
Welcome back to the SelfSeed podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to have Zarah, the voice behind the captivating podcast called Chasing China. Zarah has taken our audience to a new journey and into the heart of expat life in China, sharing insights and stories that resonate far beyond borders. But today, we are diving into something even deeper: how Zarah has balanced her podcasting journey with life twists and turns, including our upcoming new chapter as a mom. We'll explore how she started podcasting, the impact of our location, and what even it means to pause a passion project to embrace new beginnings. So let's get started. All right, so we have Zarah already with us, and I'll just let her introduce herself before we go any further. Welcome, Zarah, to the podcast. Thank you for accepting the invitation to join us today. How are you doing?
Thank you for contacting me and inviting me. It's exciting to be on the other side. So let's get started.
Thank you. I think you're more accustomed to you being the one wielding the stick, and now you're on the opposite side.
Exactly.
Nice. So I think that the first intriguing question I am thinking is, what inspired you actually to start the Chasing China podcast initially, and how did the idea come to life? Because podcaster, I have my own story of why I started the podcast, and probably you also have something that triggered you to start this. So I'm curious to know about that.
Yeah. Well, it's a good question. I guess everybody has another story behind. Some stories are more complex than others.
Right.
So I don't know if my story is that interesting, but I always wanted to find my passion. Right. You always see people who are so happy with doing their stuff, and I was always a very curious person who did a lot of things, but nothing like 100%. Mm-hmm. So when I came to China, I had the time to reflect on this more deeply, and as someone who loves to talk and to connect with people and exchange life experiences and learn from others, I felt that a podcast would be a great fit. I don't know, it's like this was the first idea, and I already had it in my head for a long time. And initially I was hesitant because it seemed like there was already a podcast for everything, right? You open Spotify, you look for someone, and that demotivated me at the beginning. Right. So, but living in China gave me the unique idea of focusing on expat experiences here. I realized that was a niche that not many people talk about or fully understand, especially having lived in Germany, where I often saw China portrayed negatively. Yeah. I don't know how it's in your home country, but I had the feeling I want to change that, to share like real balanced insights into the life here.
Right.
And through the podcast, I'm not only sharing my personal experiences and address some misconceptions, I'm also learning more about the life in China for myself. And it has become a personal journal for me, documenting this chapter of my life, and creating memories, because this can never take, like nobody can take this away from me. And not only is it a nice memory for myself, it's also a nice memory for the guests I'm hosting.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's my story.
I really like it. I really like the way that the thing that pushed you was to just tell a different story about China and the life, to just share your real life here. Because most of the times out there, people don't really have a clue of what China really is from the inside. And we all get those ideologies from, if you read on the internet, probably there will be, if you read 10 articles, probably 5 of them or 6 might be saying something negative about it. And the way that you chose. But I'm curious, why did you choose to, just do the podcasting instead? You could have done like something like vlogs or just, simple documentaries, videos to showcase your life.
So as you noticed, my podcast is without video.
Yes.
It's just about voice. I think to do it with video, you really have to be more perfectionist. You have to invest even more time into it. And it's not that I don't like to be on camera. It's not about that. But I felt more comfortable. And also some guests, who never were guests on a podcast, felt more comfortable without a video.
Without a video.
Exactly. And I wanted to make the start, of something new easier. So I just wanted to start with voice. And to answer the other part of your question, why did I not start a blog? I hate writing. Or no, I hate good writing, because if you start a blog, your orthography, you should be able to express yourself well. And I'm not a perfectionist in that. I started, maybe that was also a motivation to start the podcast. When I got to China, I started journaling. I just, every day I sat down, made notes about my life in China, my experiences, because my mother always pushed me, you should start journaling about your life. It will be so nice memories, because my mother is a filmmaker. She's a documentary maker. She's making movies and documentaries.
Interesting.
So I didn't felt like entitled to do that either. So I started, slow, but you never know what the future brings.
The future brings, I accept, because when I look back at the time that I started the podcast also, my mind wasn't in the videos at all. It was just purely, I just want to do the podcast. I just want to tell the stories, and everything else will just come with time. And I like that. So how has that podcasting journey been so far? Do you have some highlights? Do you have some challenges? Did you find some surprises along the way? Because this journey, you have been on it for some years now?
No, 6 months. Six months ago.
And so you have met people, you have heard different stories. And so I would like to know, how has that journey been so far for the past 6 months?
Sure. Well, more or less 6 months. I don't remember exactly, but I started 6 months after I arrived to China. So for 6 months I'm doing that now. So as I already mentioned, I wanted to design the start of something new very easy, because so many people hesitate or have a hard time starting something, starting a gym routine, starting to read more, whatever. So the biggest challenge was starting it, because from the moment where you have the idea to finally, publishing the first episode, a lot of time passes. So so I made it easier by recording the first episode with my husband. It felt less intimidating to take the first step with someone I trust. So, and I also used, I guess, ChatGPT. So ChatGPT helped me, because I just asked him, like, I want to start a podcast. What steps do I have to do? I looked into some host platforms and editing platforms. And my dad is actually a pianist, and he's doing a lot of editing stuff. So I could also ask him for help. So this was the first challenge, but much more highlights on the way. So you can imagine the people I've connected with have been the biggest highlight. So many guests reached out to me, or they were recommended by other guests, and I've met incredible individuals I wouldn't have encountered otherwise. And learning about Chinese culture through these conversations also helped me to adapt better to my own life here. And plus having these recorded episodes feels like an amazing collection of memories, like I already mentioned. So really, I don't know how many episodes you already listened, but there's such a wide range of topics, from parenting to acupuncture to healthcare, that it's so nice. And sorry for talking so long. I have to mention one other thing. So, making a podcast about China is a niche. Not a lot of people are interested in China. And especially my episodes are longer than 40 minutes, and not every person takes their time to listen to 40 minutes or 60 minutes of an episode. So I never had this big audience of listeners, but a very loyal group of listeners. And by the time, or throughout the time, so many people texted me and with such a nice feedback. And I remember one specific message I got, and she was a Russian girl, and she told me that she arrived to Beijing during the COVID time and had a pretty rough start, and was not really appreciating everything she had and lived here. But thanks to listening to my podcast, she said she got a whole new perspective on her life in China, is more grateful now, and that made me so happy. And these little messages of feedback makes it worth to put all the effort and time at it. So that's my highlight.
I can resonate with that, because when you receive just one, even not hundreds, just one message, and someone says that the story that you last told, the thing that you last talked about was helpful to them, I think that brings the joy, because you're already, like how you started, this is like a passion project, and you just wanted to rediscover your passion, and now you get compliments along the way that you are helping someone while doing something that you love. And so that's very interesting, and I would like to congratulate you for staying resilient and continue sharing, because as you say, the topic of China, being able to talk about China, is a niche space, and not many people would want to really invest all of their energy into talking about it. And the same comes to the audience. You'll get you might get a devoted audience, but not everyone will be willing to listen. So I like that you've stayed resilient and you continue telling these stories, and furthermore in ways that we did not think about in many ways, because you're not just talking about, let's say, one thing that is politics, but rather you are talking about all the lifestyle aspect, the social life of China, and which is interesting for people out there to hear about it. And I believe that the podcasting has helped you in the process, and to be able to reflect on your life here in China. As you said, it is kind of your audio journal of your life here in China. So I'm wondering, how has it really helped you into becoming into you progressing in your life in China, and being able to reflect on how you live your daily life? Because I would say I came to China, but I know most things is by my observation. But when you hear from other people, it helps you kind of reflect and change some things. And so I'm curious to know, how has this podcasting been helpful on that direction?
Well, first of all, to kind of starting to find my passion helped me to feel just better with myself, right? Because it was the first time I didn't work. I come from an artist family, and I always, like, from the age of 13, I worked because I wanted to earn my own money. So I knew when I got to China that at least for the first month I will not be working, and I didn't know how I will feel. Will I miss it? Will I miss being a part of a team or whatever? But with the podcast, I noticed that I never felt, not only with the podcast, but also other parts of my life, I felt like I was never that fulfilled and never that busy, even though I was not working. So that was a big surprise and helped me to reflect, because I think every human being is so different. There are so many people working in very high positions in big companies who are really enjoying it, spending 70 hours in an office, enjoying it, feeling purpose. I never understood that, or not till now. I'm still young, right? Maybe I will get to that point one day. But realizing that living here in China with a side hustle like the podcast, I'm still much more satisfied and fulfilled than before, was a big reflection on my life, because it opens you the opportunity long term to think about, how do I want to live my life? Do I see myself 40 years as an employee in a big company, which I am right now, back in Germany, or can I imagine myself doing something else? So this was one big realization, and the podcast helped me with that. And another part is what specific, like, of course, the podcast helped me to reflect on my life here in China, and especially the episode with an intercultural coach. Tillman is his name. I had a coach within the company I'm working in, and I just asked him if he would be open to join a podcast interview, and well, he gave me a totally new perspective on the cultural differences here in China, such as the concept of, I don't know if you have heard about it, inner and outer group. Like, it's a total different thing if you're in a group with Chinese people or outer group with Chinese people.
Right.
I learned how to perceive this rudeness of Chinese people, because foreigners often think Chinese people are very rude. And throughout this interview, I achieved to have more understanding for Chinese people, because it's just a big amount of people. You know, you have to be selfish in order to survive. And also all these discussions helped me to navigate better and understand life better here, because sometimes things can be very frustrating with the spitting or the traffic or whatever. And understanding, you know, going beyond the actual behavior to understand it makes it easier to accept and just say, well, I'm also weird. We Germans are weird. You're weird. Chinese are weird. We are all weird people with weird behaviors, and that's okay.
I remember on the goodbye episode, because I listened to some part of it, and I remember when you were talking about the culture shocks that you had now to accept and handle. Like, you know, you just mentioned the spitting part, that Chinese, how they spit. I mean, until today, I still, you know, we still find it weird, but you have to live with it, because you understand that, okay, these people have their own way, and culturally, it's not a bad thing for them to spit, because I think in the episode you said it's, you know, it comes from the Confucius thing that you have to clean your body, and so I love how this podcasting journey has been very, very helpful, because on my end as well, the people I get to have on the podcast, and I get to listen to their stories, and at some point when I usually talk to my Chinese friends, and you just get to understand, you know, like, the podcast is one way that you get to learn new things freely. I kind of sometimes don't say that, but I get to learn new things freely, compared to if I was to take the initiative and say, search the internet, learn about this. Probably I'll not get all the information, but podcasting becomes a unique thing. And do you think that your podcast would have taken a different direction if let's say you were maybe still in Germany or in another country? Do you think it would have taken another direction? Because right now we are talking about, your podcast is Chasing China, and you're trying to tell about the life of expats here, the cultural differences, daily stories, and all that, your own experiences. But do you think it would have been different if you were, let's say, back in Germany, or you were just in another country?
Absolutely. I think the answer is it's pretty short. I probably wouldn't have started it at all, you know, because, as I said, I was not motivated to start on a topic, but being here in China motivated me and gave me the time to start it. So
get the idea.
Yeah. So I wouldn't have started a podcast at all. But now I've built a solid foundation, and in the future I could launch another podcast. You know, when I'm back in Germany, I could start a podcast about motherhood or bilingual education, both of which have been on my mind a lot recently, because I'm fluent in Spanish, and we will raise our kid, or at least we will try, German Spanish. And I think this is still a niche, because, you know, it's a long journey, and it's now a total different topic. But, you know, if it's not your mother tongue and you want to raise your kid bilingual, and you feel like kind of ready, but you don't know if you're entitled to, it's a scary step. And I think this is still a niche, like bilingual education, or raising children bilingual, if it's not your mother tongue. And I think this could be a great topic for maybe another episode, another podcast in the future.
Yeah, I like it, because the experiences that we have, the places that we are in, they can shape the stories that we tell. And it is interesting, because if you were to be in another country, probably you'll do a podcast, but probably another thing, or you might, as well as you said, you might not have done it at all. because I mean, it's the environment that really motivates us to continue the journey that we like. But now you've become a professional, and so I believe if you are to go into another place, you just choose another niche and do great as well.
Let's see.
And you know, when it comes to the audience, usually my audience is like, let's say the age is between 18 to 17, around to maybe 35, 40, and so there's these listeners have different ways to resonate with my content. And some people, like let's say the older generation, might find maybe this content is not really relevant to me or something like that. The smaller kids also might not get it, but this group, this certain age group can resonate with my content. And I'm curious, are there any differences in the way that your listeners from, let's say, listeners from different parts of the world connect with your content? Because I'm sure you share the podcast with your friends in Germany, you share the podcast with the friends, the colleagues that you have here in China, and now you have different friends from different countries already you have met. Do you think there's a different, do they resonate differently with your podcast, with the content?
Well, it's a good question. And first of all, I think looking at your own statistics is pretty interesting. As you said, it's age, it's nationality. And the funny thing with my podcast is that I talk about such different topics that the listeners are also very different, you know? And I guess there is a difference because I didn't know before I started the podcast, I didn't know who will be my listeners, you know, my audience. Will it be more like people here in China who are already living here, or people who are thinking about coming here? And it's almost 50-50, you know, 50-50, people who lived here, listen to it and like compare it with their own experiences and maybe give me feedback or tell me, like, even though they are already living here for 3 years, the content was still helpful. And other people, like, for example, friends or family in Germany, are pretty fascinated or also confused in a good way about the life in China, because it's definitely different than what the media shows of China, right? Because as you said, like from I don't know, 9 out of 10 articles about China are negative, you know, because normally all the people only talk about politics, and I just wanted to not talk about that. And I'm aware also about, you know, negative things, and there are enough sources where you get that, but not in my podcast. I still wanted to show a different a distinguished or reflected picture, you know, not only harmonizing and optimizing everything, but so I guess there is a difference between the listeners.
I'm intrigued by the last part that you said, and I'm curious to know, do you always talk only about the positives, or do you like talk about the raw China that we are experiencing, the life that is around you, and so people get to talk freely about the things that they experience, their ideas and all that? So
I guess if you listen to my podcast episodes, well, it's a good question. I guess 80% or 90% is positive stuff, because it's not fake or something. I just share my experiences, you know, and I'm so happy living here and I feel so grateful. But I always make this disclaimer that I'm living a very privileged life here. I'm an expat. I have a private health insurance. My company pays for a very nice apartment. I do not have to clean. Like, this life I've never expected myself to live. So I can only talk about that. And my life here, and I'm so grateful for that. My life here is pretty nice, and also experiencing this modern, digitalized, advanced lifestyle here, what we do not have in Germany, really not. It's just very fascinating to me, and I want to share that because I know a lot of people don't know that. So no, I'm not really talking very negative about China, especially because I don't know if my podcast will be banished or whatever. So I try not to step into political things. But of course, there are also comments about things I don't know, I do not like, or my guests do not like. But it's everything is true what I'm telling them. I'm just focusing on the good things because it's my personality. I just try to focus on good things in life.
That's interesting. That's the right thing. I think that that's the right way to go, trying to be optimistic and trying to look at the positive side of life and not really ignoring the negative, but trying just to keep a positive and open mindset. Because sometimes I think people think that people who talk good about China are somehow forced or paid to talk good about China, and I mean, it's all weird and all that. But now you have been on this journey for the past 6 months, and you have totally shown that you enjoy it. But circumstances are telling you that you have to now change the direction. And now you have to go down to another journey. And you're saying, the last episode, you said, I'm about to pause this journey it might be for a long time or for a short time, not so sure. But yeah. So I'm curious to know what led to the decision to, pause the Chasing China as you prepare for this next step of the next chapter of your life. What led to you?
Well, I think I have a very, very good explanation and excuse to stop the podcast. I'm expecting my first baby soon, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. The latest next week. So a very exciting journey. And I really want to take the time to enjoy this postpartum period, bond with my little one and settle into this new role as a mother. Also, as I already mentioned, raising my child bilingually in Spanish and German is also a big focus for me, and I need the time and mental space for that.
Right.
And pausing the podcast feels like the right decision to give myself and my family the space we need during this exciting time. And also, that's also a big difference for me here back in Germany. I'm still very young. I'm 27 years old in Germany. All my friends do not have babies yet, so I guess I would have panicked a lot in Germany, but here, every spouse here is already a mom of at least 2 children. So I got a lot of advice, and every mom told me, really enjoy this postpartum time because it's a very special time. And to be honest, I'm quite enjoying also the distance to family because it gives me the space, to really enjoy the first weeks of intimacy with the baby. Right. And that includes the podcast.
Powerful. Congratulations on that. And I am delighted to be maybe the last podcast you talk to before you have the newborn.
I'm pretty sure. Yes.
Wishing you the very best of in this next chapter. Yeah, God be with you.
Thank you.
And I don't know. I'm curious also to add on top of that a little concern. Was it difficult to make that choice, to make that decision? Was it difficult?
Stop the podcast?
Yeah.
Not really, because at the end it's a hobby. I did not earn any dollar with it. Nothing. I just did it for myself. As I also already mentioned, I did not have a big audience. So at the end, it's a hobby. I'm doing it for myself. And I published 30 episodes in 6 months, and I'm pretty proud of that. I learned so much. So for me, it's okay, but I do not want to give it all up. It is a work to do a podcast. It is a lot of work, and you grow with it because you learn how to use editing programs, and I really want to use the skills and my foundation I built also in the future. So that's why I said it's a pause. I don't know how long or how short. But as it is just a pause, it's not so difficult, especially expecting a baby.
Nice. I think it will be great, because when you even take this pause, maybe after a while, if you ever decide to come back to the podcast, I believe you'll even have more interesting stories to share, and that gives you the time. Because I also remember I paused my podcast somewhere, and the time I came back, I think I had more things to share, more stories to share. And so it's I am happy for you, because 6 months, 30 episodes, that's huge. Congratulations.
Thank you. And long episodes, it's a lot of work, but amazing.
That's a lot of work, and you have been consistent. You have been at it for all the 6 months. So
if I start something, proud. I'm very German. I'm consistent. I have a plan. But what about you? Why did you pause your podcast once?
Yeah, I paused my podcast once because I started questioning myself. I was like, what am I really inspiring anyone? My story is really relevant. And then I had also school. because when I started my podcast, I think to 2018, and then in 2018, in 2019, I had to enroll into university, and so I had in 2018, I was joyful and happy and encouraged to start the podcast and tell their stories and all that, and inspire someone else's life, a young person's life out there. But after some time, it just comes to you like, okay, wait, did I learn enough? Because I like reading, I like learning new stuff. But at that point, I had to question myself, wait, is it enough? And then I was like, no, let's pause it, let's learn again, and then let's get to meet new people, let's go to new places. And then probably after some time, if God wishes, I will come back again. And I think after pausing in 2019, I came back in 2022. Yeah, 2022, in which I was already here in China. And so you can imagine I already had all these 4 years, I had accumulated stories and experiences and all that. And I became an even better person. So I thought, okay, let's just do it again. Because I didn't delete the podcast, the episodes, the podcast at all. So I just came back and I said, okay, the reason I paused for 4 years, it was this. And why am I coming back? I think I have stories to share. And the greatest thing I had was that the mindset I had at that moment was like, okay, I'll also let more people, share their ideas on the podcast, which means people don't just get to listen to me. I also get to listen to people, and my audience also get to grab some things from different perspectives. And that's when I came back, and it has been interesting so far.
Yeah, it's nice that you're back, and I think that's also like within your journey we can see that also the motivation behind things. Why do we start things? There's also a book like Why, right? What is find your why or something like that, also a self-help book. Because for me, you asked me if it was hard to make the decision. For me, not, because I do not have big and not big goals to get to, I don't know, millions of listeners. As I mentioned, I'm doing it for myself, and this is my motivation to create memories for me and my guests, and to learn something and to exchange something. So that was my motivation. So even though some episodes had not a lot of listeners, it was okay for me, because I did it for me at the end. But if you're only orientated in or focused on the other people, the feedback you get, or how many listeners you have, how many clicks you have, then that's sometimes not enough. Yeah. So it's good that you took a step back and thought about why are you doing that, and reflected about your journey.
Thank you very much. And I mean, I also believe you'd enjoy this time. And even when you come, since the podcast is not really inclining to only having millions of listeners or solely generating income from it, it's a passion project. I believe when you come to it, you'll still be great, you'll still do it greatly. And so that I mean, I just want to shift our focus away from the podcast. And the first thing I want to say is congratulations on your your journey of being an upcoming mom. And I'm curious to know, from that perspective, since this was the reason as well why you have to pause so that you focus on your family, how has this experience been so far? Just you paused everything, and now you have to try and focus on to becoming a good mom, becoming a good wife and all that, and just grow this family. How has that experience been so far?
Well, I love the question. Thank you for the question, because as being a new mom and not having any experiences with pregnancy or babies before, it was very helpful for me to listen to other stories, right? So I'm happy to share my experiences. And of course, it's been full of ups and downs, especially being so far away. But in my case, that helped. So the first few months were particularly tough because the timing wasn't ideal. I had just started a new job here in China, and after months of waiting towards the working permit, and I guess that all the visa stuff in China is a bit complicated. I achieved working here in China, and I was so happy. And then I got pregnant, and balancing the demands of a new role with this fatigue and nausea of early pregnancy was incredibly challenging. because especially in the first months, you do not want to tell too many people, right? So
Right.
it's starting a new job is like you get so much input and you have to listen. And I was just like, can I please sleep or vomit? So this was pretty rough. And then I'm in a privileged position that I was not relying on the job. So I could, after I waited, the first crucial 3 months, I could decide, well, I will resign now because I was working in a local contract, and local contract working conditions are, at least for me, compared to the conditions we have in Germany, a bit too much for this situation, especially first pregnancy. Why not enjoy that?
Right.
And I carry on with the podcast, especially. So I decided to quit. And after that, it got a little bit easier. But a big part of it was that I'm a very active and sportive person, and not having the energy to maintain my usual routines was very frustrating. And however, I try to embrace it because I'm so grateful for being pregnant. You know how many women struggle with it. And so this was the first month. I just struggled a bit. I did not enjoy the pregnancy till then a lot, because when you watch movies, it's always like, oh, I enjoy pregnancy, best time of my life, everything is so great, you're glowing. Not for every woman, and if I'm being honest, for most women, it's not the most amazing journey.
Right.
But what has made a huge difference is this incredible support network I found here from experienced moms, who shared advice. And also, as I already mentioned, the access to the private healthcare system made me feel so supported throughout this journey and so calm. And I honestly don't think I would have been so calm in Germany, because I do not have this network there. So thanks to all the surroundings here, people, healthcare system, also, these little things like Meituan or Didi that help
they
you.
Make life easy.
Yes, makes life easier, and also the journey. And I think to finish my long answer, I think my pregnancy is pretty weird, because normally, you get, by the time you have less energy and you get more tired, and you really want to get rid of all the stuff inside of you. But I don't know why, for me, that it was like with my energy, it was like increasing. Now for the last 5 weeks, I have so much energy. I started to go back to the gym and doing weightlifting again. So it is the first time I'm really enjoying pregnancy, and now it's over almost. So I guess I have a weird body, but that's fine. We already talked about it. We're all weird in our kind of way.
Yeah, we all have our weirdness. And the first thing when we started talking, I was like, wait, is she pregnant? Because the energy is quite it's quite infectious, because you have a very good energy, a very high energy, and someone might not easily think, okay, is she really pregnant? Because someone might not even believe that you're pregnant when they just talk to you without seeing you.
I can show it in your beautiful hoodie I bought. Like, I think I'm pregnant.
You think you're pregnant? Soon enough, he's coming. Is he a she or?
It is a he. It is a he. Yes.
He. Okay, he is coming soon, and I'm very proud and I'm very happy, because when we started talking, as I said, your energy was up on the roof, and usually when I have a guest on the podcast and their energy is up on the roof, it motivates me and encourages me. And it tells me, okay, bring your energy to the same level. And that this experience has been super, super awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And
I'm
really
also enjoying talking to you.
And also you're a podcast host, so I guess that energy you're picking in from your podcast, from you're also an active lifestyle person. So I guess all of that, they contribute to you being an energetic person. So I think this is my last question, probably my last curiosity. What lessons are you carrying from your podcasting journey and into your journey as a parent? I am curious, because we learn a lot of stuff, but then especially in the podcast, we listen to a lot of people, listen to a lot of ideas and all that. But then, which one are you carrying to your parenting mode? When the parenting mode is activated, which lessons are you carrying with you? I'm curious to know about that.
Well, I think we always want to carry so many lessons, but at the end, what we really try achieve to integrate in our life is a different thing. I've learned is the importance of listening, right? I'm talking too much, I know. So, but I'm also good at listening. So truly hear people's stories and perspective without judgment. We already talked about the Chinese culture. Right. I think this skill will be invaluable as a parent, helping me to understand my child's needs and emotions. And podcasting has taught me to embrace imperfection as well. Not every episode or conversation goes exactly as planned. Not every podcast guest has a good or high energy. So it's part of the process, and I already mentioned right at the beginning of the our podcast episode that I'm not a perfectionist, and I think that will help me because motherhood will never be perfect. I will never be the perfect mom. I do not want to be, and there's no perfect, and embrace this imperfection and give yourself time. Like at the end, everything in life is learning by doing. Even though you had the greatest study program in the best university in the world, at the end in your job you have to learn by doing, right?
Yeah, you're right.
And
practical.
Not to put too much pressure on myself. This I think is a lesson I really hope I can integrate.
Giving yourself grace.
Yeah, not good at that, but the life
it's the
is
lesson that you have to now practice.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it. I like the part that we just don't listen. We just don't just interview for the purpose of interviewing. You just don't get stories out for the purpose of getting them out, but also trying to make them our personal lessons, our personal courses that we are trying to also see how we can deal with our own life, especially in the niche that we do. This trying to tell personal stories and all that. This aspect makes us, good learners, and I think all the lessons that you have carried, they are going to be very useful. And including the last one that you're saying, you're still not good at it, but you're going to be good at it, because I believe when we have an encounter with new people, let's say an example. When you first met your husband, I believe that you had some differences, although you liked each other and all that, but you had some things that were not, really going along. But with time, you got to understand, you got to find a common ground, I guess, that you guys have to live. And so I believe even in this new journey, still you're going to encounter this new person, this new being, and you're going to learn on how to nurture them to become so that you become closer, and yet not really influence their growing up negatively, rather positively. So I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe at the end I can interview my own son and have a podcast interview with him. So that will be interesting.
That would be good. That would be great if like on time you'd have a podcast with just your family, your sons, and all that. That would be interesting, actually, thinking about it.
Yeah. But I have to give them the script before, so that they tell everybody how amazing I am as a mom.
Yeah. You have to prepare a script so that they don't go off script. They don't say something that wasn't there. Yeah. So I'm about to wrap up, and I'm about to conclude the episode today. And I've really enjoyed having you on the podcast. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing your personal stories about your podcasting journey, about being a mom, because all of these, they show that how life can be, is a tapestry. It's a mixture of different things, and that's what makes life beautiful. And
absolutely.
And so before I conclude, since you're a podcast host, I can also give you a chance if you have any questions, because if I conclude, then we say bye-bye. And I'm pretty sure before you go, you want to also practice your podcasting hosting skill once again. If you do, you're welcome to.
Well, to be honest, I have many questions. Too many that we can answer today, episode. I guess. But as you said, as I'm a podcast host as well, I would love to have you on my show one day. And
Sure.
this is probably my last question. Are you interested in joining my podcast? I would love to hear about your journey, your motivation, why you started it, your ups and downs, and yeah, your story behind it. I would love that.
For sure, for sure. Anytime, any day, you know, when we get there, when you're ready to just go onto the podcast, if you're there contemplating who should I have first on the podcast, I can be that person, that the first guest in your
Perfect.
next if season or time. I can come on the podcast for sure.
Perfect. I would love that. Thank you so much for inviting. It was so interesting to be on the other side and to not ask too many questions. I tried not to ask too much because if not, that would be an episode about 2 or 3 hours. So we keep that in mind for another episode. And well, thank you.
All right. Thank you. And guys, remember to go and check Chasing China episode, Chasing China by Zarah. On YouTube. It's available. It's all audio episodes, and you can just listen quickly as you go about your day. The same way that you listen to the SelfSeed podcast, be sure to check out Chasing China by Zarah. Until next time, thank you guys for tuning in.